But what I want to do is bring together the business women for professional development, for networking, for referrals, because when you have that community around you, it makes your life so much easier.
What do you like most about life here in Riyadh?
To be honest, it's actually a lot easier than the Western world. I never thought I would be moving to the Middle East, let alone Saudi.
So it wasn't on your radar?
Not at all. Not at all. I knew nothing really about the kingdom prior to moving here.
So that was a big jump, but it sounded like a good fit for you?
The best move I've ever made.
Welcome to Success Saudi, a podcast featuring leaders and entrepreneurs in KSA. Our aim is to provide you with local tips and wisdom for your own journey to success. My name is Maria Cometi, and I'm here today with Cassandra Heilbronn. Cassandra is the CEO of a private family office here in KSA. She practiced as a lawyer, specializing in sports, entertainment, and corporate risk, both in Australia and here in Saudi Arabia. Cassandra is a seasoned speaker and travels internationally, giving keynotes and participating on panels. Cassandra, tell us about your journey leading up to becoming CEO of a private family office.
Well, I originally moved to Saudi in 2019. I was headhunted for a role at Royal Commission for Al Ula. So that started in late 2018. And admittingly, when I received the phone call, I thought it was a joke. It was almost like a too good to be true type situation. I was boarding a plane and I said to the recruiter, look, I am boarding a plane. If you're serious, please call me back in an hour and a half once I land. And he called me back and I was like, oh, you're serious. This is real. Because nowhere in the world was very limited jurisdictions where you would be given the opportunity to come in and draft new regulations and laws, which is what I was doing for Al Ula initially.
Okay.
And from that, I created a network in Saudi and met some people, including those of the family that I currently work for. And I'd been with Al Ula for about 2 years. And she said, we want you to come across and run our father's family office. And I was like, wow, yes. So it was about a 6-month transition period where, negotiating contracts, finishing off my projects with Al Ula because I didn't want to leave halfway through. And here I am now, almost 2 years with the family.
Wow, that's amazing. So you got the call from the headhunter. Had you worked outside of Australia before?
No. So I actually had planned to move to America. That was the long-term goal. Long-term, whether it be a year or 2, 3 years, 4 years. It was something I wanted to do. I never thought I would be moving to the Middle East, let alone Saudi.
So it wasn't on your radar?
Not at all. Not at all. I knew nothing really about the kingdom prior to moving here.
Okay. Wow. So that was a big jump, but it sounded like a good fit for you. Interesting position.
The best move I've ever made.
Excellent. Yep. So tell us about your transition moving from a career in legal. You spent your previous professional life as a lawyer, right? So how was that transition moving from legal to the CEO?
So I'd wanted to be a lawyer since I was about 8 years old. It was the only thing I ever wanted to do. And as I progressed through my legal career, I realized I did want to move into more of the C-suite role. I thought it would be, a vice president of a sporting organization in America and then moving up to the CEO role once I was better acquainted with, the American lifestyle. And I think it was 2017 or 2018, I was sitting with my executive coach and I said to her, I do want to be a CEO. I love the leadership, I love interacting, I love the strategic direction, and I can also draw on my skills from being a lawyer. So much so, I changed my password to my email to future CEO. There was digits and symbols afterwards.
So this is even before you knew about
Saudi
role.
Before Saudi. So 17. Even before Saudi, yes. Password was future CEO. The rest of the requirements. And it happened, 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago now, 2.5 almost.
Okay, so that was your plan to become a CEO.
Yes.
So when the opportunity arose, you knew it was something that you
Definitely.
were interested in.
I mean, I did go through a bit of an internal dialogue, I won't say crisis, going from a lawyer to a CEO because my branding, even online, everything was lawyer Cass. That's all I'd ever known in my professional and adult life. And so changing that and to go to a CEO, I thought, well, I've got to change all my social media handles because I can't represent that I'm a lawyer when I'm not working as one. I still have my practicing certificate, but my title isn't a lawyer. So I didn't want to fall foul of, misconduct rules or representation. But even introducing myself, people would say, what do you do? And then my response was, I'm a lawyer. And the first time I was asked after I'd moved into this role, I kind of stumbled because I was like, I'm a lawyer by trade, but now I work as a CEO. Because do I need to say I was a lawyer? Do I have any less credibility now that I'm not a lawyer? Do I just say I'm a CEO? Will they think I'm a CEO of my own business or a beauty company? Or how do I describe myself? Because, and I don't say rightly or wrongly, I really, my profession is a large part of my identity. So it was a big shift for me and a big decision to make, but also the right one.
So how do you answer now, and what are you doing as far as personal branding now that you're not practicing full-time?
So it depends on the context. A lot of times I'll really downplay what I do, particularly say I'm traveling for work internationally. It might be socially. I will read the crowd. Do I need to say I'm CEO for a Saudi family? Or do I say I'm a lawyer by trade and just leave it at that? Because a lot of the times people don't actually care about the answer. It's more of a formality that they're asking. So I pick and choose. In terms of personal branding, it was a good shift, and it means I've now focused or refocused more on career development in terms of what I promote on socials. So helping women progress in their careers, what skills they can have, rather than focusing on the whole lawyer cast's lifestyle.
Okay, very good. So what does your daily life look like now as a CEO?
So it's varied because the family members live overseas. They have, a lot of them come back to Saudi as a home base, but also a lot of time they've got business interests and jobs internationally. So I work across multiple time zones, but that works well because Saudi, as you know, is a very late culture. So having a meeting at 10 p.m. so I can line up with New York or LA, it works completely fine because it's not necessarily out of hours. Whereas to do a call like that in Australia, rather, it would be like, wow, you're working at 10 p.m. at night. But here it all marries up.
And are you conducting meetings and doing things here in Riyadh?
Yes, so a lot of meetings, a lot of governance, strategy, managing investments for the family. We've got, estate management that comes into me to oversee any issues, signing off on rosters, personnel changes. It's varied. I've never spent so much time on my WhatsApp and on my laptop. It's a big part of business life here is WhatsApp. So I'm constantly glued to that a lot of the time. But it's good. Every day is varied. I'm not doing the same thing every morning or every evening. There's a lot of flexibility in my schedule, which is helpful when working across the multiple time zones.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. And you're traveling a lot.
Yes.
Too, right?
Yes. Although I just spent summer in Riyadh, and I think I was the only person who was here because usually I'm traveling all the time, but my friends were gone and I was actually here. So I've completely missed summer this year.
So what advice would you give to other people who have spent their careers in one industry and have their identity attached to that and are considering making a change? Or what advice would you give them?
I guess it would come down to their long-term goals. Where do you want to be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? Is it within your skill set? Is it something you want to do, or are you having it as more of a career break? There's no right or wrong decision for anyone. There could be consequences if you try something new and it doesn't work, but I think a lot of that might be internal. Because I know my friends, say if I moved into this role and it simply didn't work, they wouldn't think any less of me. I would have been very tough on myself. Same with my move to Saudi, but everyone is none the wiser.
But then if it's something in your heart and you don't try it, then
that's it.
You would live with the regret of never knowing.
That's it.
I'm sure you still receive a lot of legal questions. So can you tell us some of the questions you commonly receive?
Yes. Look, I don't know how anyone can do this role without a legal background.
Really?
There's a lot of the skills I have from that have certainly translated across. In terms of legal questions, it's always about contracts, negotiation, the clauses regarding indemnity, giving releases and things like that. I still have friends or outside businesses that I might have consulted with, particularly in the sports industry, call up for, a phone a friend, Cass, what should we do in this situation? And I'm like, oh, okay, A, B, C, D. And they're like, how do you know this? Like, well, it's what I practiced in. It's what I did for, over 15 years. It just is second nature to me. So I like kind of keeping my finger on the pulse still with all of the legal issues and developments, particularly here in Saudi.
And there is a lot of development.
It's here. Amazing. New laws. So the new civil transactions law have just come out. I know there's been proposed changes to company laws, foreign investment. It's really working well.
Interesting. Much of our audience will be aspiring founders, aspiring entrepreneurs looking to start up a business, both expats and locals. Do you have any advice for founders?
Sure. Here in Saudi, it would be to make sure you have a really good PRO, someone who can do all the requirements for company registration, the different licenses, identifying the correct activities.
A very good what?
PRO.
What's a PRO?
They're basically your liaison officer with all of the government entities. So they're the person going to Ministry of Commerce and getting the commercial registration. If it's a foreign investment, they're dealing with MISA. If you have workers, dealing with MHRSD, helping you set up Gozi, Mudad, Mukim. They're that central person who can handle everything. And if you have a great one, it will make your life so much easier because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So that's the number one point. The next thing is thinking about if you need to do any trademarks. A lot of people think that is definitely the first thing, but it's kind of in the mix as one of the first things to make sure that you're protecting your brand, your assets, because you could have a fantastic idea, but then go to trademark it and realize someone else already has that name. You've spent so much time and effort in marketing, getting all your licenses, social media handles, and then finding out that name is trademarked. It will put you back to square one, which can be a lot of time, cost, and effort.
So would you say for most or all businesses, trademarking the name is important, or only certain types of business?
It depends. That's such a legal answer. It depends. I don't believe I actually said it depends, but it does depend.
Yeah,
especially if your product has patents involved. Are you developing new technology? That's when intellectual property and trademarking is very important. If you're starting a new cosmetics or clothing company, you should be at least doing a search online first to make sure the name's available.
Okay.
And then perhaps the actual registration of the trademark can happen in the, opening months rather in the starting week.
Okay. Good to know. And you mentioned the importance of finding a great PRO.
Yeah.
How do you find one?
If you speak to a law firm, they usually have one, not necessarily on retainer. Sometimes it could be an employee, but they have a connection, a network of PROs. And that's how I initially found the guys that we work with. It's all through referral network. And for me, if the lawyers have already vetted them and know them, they can get the job done, I'm certainly going to use those ones.
Good advice. If someone wanted to do business with a family office here in Saudi Arabia, which there are quite a few, what would you give them?
Look, my first thing would be to say, build a relationship. So what happens so often for me on LinkedIn is people see I'm tied to a Saudi family. They immediately think money. They think that we're just going to give this money without any type of due diligence or review of what we're actually investing in. I receive a lot of messages will just say, hey, I'm this person, I'm in this company, we're after 1 million US in investment. Like, you've just messaged me. You wouldn't come up to me in the street and be like, hi, I'm Charlie. Can you please give me $1 million for my startup? Build the relationship. I want to know about you. I want to know about your product. What's your plan for the business? What's your exit strategy? We can't just be handing over money after money after money without any idea of that. I think LinkedIn and certainly social media and tech kind of has taken away that personality to it, to the building of relationships. But when someone approaches me and just hard sells straight away, I have to remember I am representing a family. I couldn't necessarily respond how I'd like to sometimes because I don't want it to reflect badly. But please just take a moment to connect. I'm more likely to take the time to go into something as a deep dive.
Yeah.
If you've built that relationship, you got to know me, you got to know the family or what our interests are.
Yeah.
Perhaps we don't want to invest into America. Perhaps we don't have, an Australian strategy. Talk about that first and then pitch us.
Okay. Can you give an example of someone or a company that had an investment opportunity for you and that you didn't know of before and who came and approached you and you were interested and ended up investing? I can think of an example.
There's a number of examples of that. And once, I guess your name is out there and you are associated with a family office, it's just a constant referral network.
Okay.
And there have been some great investments. Details I can't give because of confidentiality, but they're really exciting. And especially here in Saudi, there's so much growth happening across multiple industries. I don't think I would have been exposed to these types of brands or companies had it not been for this role.
So a lot of it comes through referrals. Have you done any business through LinkedIn?
Yes, I have. And I mean, as a lawyer, that was one of my main referral networks was LinkedIn. But now people will say there's one company we might be invested in, and like Cassandra, I've got a friend who's looking for this one. I'll send him your details. It will all be LinkedIn sharing. We get the cold emails or cold LinkedIn messages, I should say, similar to the cold calling, when you're back in the 80s. That happens quite a bit on LinkedIn.
Excellent. I was watching a previous interview with you and you were advising other female lawyers to work with a career coach. Is that some advice that you would still give?
Definitely. In fact, I recommend every professional corporate works with a career coach. If nothing else, it helps you develop your ideas and it gets it out of your brain. So you can plan, you can see it, and you can work towards your goals. Some people might say that's manifesting. Some people might say that's strategic planning. To me, it has just worked. It's just worked. And even those in business who might not have a corporate or a professional role, it can help them because they might be a creative and not great on accounting and record keeping, which you need when you're running a business. So having a business coach or an executive coach will help you with that. And they usually have a good network. So if you're lacking in one area or need expertise or a referral, they can make that for you.
Well, that sounds amazing. How do you find a career coach or an executive coach? Do you know any resources internationally or here in Saudi Arabia?
Yes, a lot of it, especially those that work with the top CEOs, it's on a referral basis. They don't advertise. They don't have websites. For those, say you're at a senior or mid to senior level, whether in a consulting firm or a law firm, there are people available when you do a Google search. There's also, like for myself, I would recommend certain people. This week, I was actually contacted on LinkedIn by a young gentleman. He's Saudi and he's an executive coach. The first person this is my 5th year in Saudi that I've ever seen refer to executive coaching who was a Saudi. So I said to him, look, I've got my own coach. I don't need your services, but I would love to know more about you so I can refer you on to people. Because if he's trained as this, but also knows the Saudi market and the ways of doing business, amazing.
That is amazing. Please keep me updated.
I will, definitely.
Okay, so let's talk about your life here in Saudi Arabia. What have been the best local resources for you with life and work here in the kingdom?
For life, certainly the compound network.
The residential.
Yes, the residential compounds. When I first moved here, it was to a smaller compound. I'd moved on my own. I was 34. I didn't know anyone or anything about Saudi. And it was really hard to get to know the culture and to meet people when there wasn't others around me. I moved to a larger compound, and there I was exposed to different nationalities, different age groups, different fields of expertise. And that really helped me connect and build that friendship network, which is what you need when you're working in such a demanding role. In terms of work, say when I was in Australia, in a law firm, I'm in my certain practice group. I wouldn't necessarily go out and actively seek to know everything about all of the other departments because we knew they were there. You had your outside life. There wasn't as much of a need to get to know people and learn how to do business. But when I was at Royal Commission for Al-Ula, I needed to make an effort to learn about the other departments. So if I wanted to know something about procurement, because the laws were changing at that time here in Saudi, I had a relationship with someone in the procurement department, but I could also learn about what happens in Saudi. I didn't know anything about arts and culture here in the kingdom, so getting to know people from that department just to expand that network. So you had a resource and a relationship built, because if I needed something done urgently, I could call them and be like, you already know me, please give me a favor, rather than building that relationship and being like, you don't know me, but I need you to do this. Please help me out.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing. If someone is interested to come work here in Saudi Arabia, what advice would you give them?
Number one is to talk to people who actually live here. There are a number of Facebook groups for expats which talk about it all the time. I see questions being asked quite often. I'm not a big Facebook user, but I find I'm on there more often answering questions because people want to know about life in Saudi. Some of my close girlfriends here in Saudi have actually been females who have contacted me on Instagram prior to moving. So their husband might have just had a first interview, or they just received a call about moving. And it's particularly the Australian women, they know I held a prominent role for gender diversity, progressing women in a corporate world. So I think for them, if they thought, well, if Cassandra can move from that to Saudi, life must be pretty good there. So I've made some great friends just from them asking, what do we need to bring to Saudi? What are the supermarkets like? What do we wear to work? How do we meet locals? If we want to go on a day trip, how do we do that? It's been all through that. So speak to someone who's here. We can tell you what life is actually like because we're here.
Right.
We know what's happening on a day-to-day basis.
And you can find those people through groups on social media?
Yes. I mean, a really big one is expat women in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of questions from schooling to compounds. Someone has compiled a list of all of the compounds in Riyadh with a contact person, pricing, availability, and it's just a central resource that I didn't have access to when I moved here.
And it's an active group?
Very, very active.
That's amazing.
Good.
Occasionally I'll go on a group and you can just search the chats.
Yes.
And it all,
yes,
like all the conversations around compounds would come up.
Compounds and schools.
Yeah.
To frequently asked questions.
What about the nuances of doing business here in Saudi Arabia? What's been different for you? What have you learned?
So the difference is Saudi has made me realize you don't live to work. And that's not saying we're not hard workers here, but they appreciate there is more to life than 14 to 16-hour days where you just don't get out of your head from a work perspective. When I moved here, I felt like I wasn't achieving at work because I wasn't doing crazy, erratic hours, being pulled in different directions. It was kind of a sense of peace and calm. And at first I thought, I'm not doing my job. Then I realized that is what life is like. And one of the other nuances is it's not a strict 8 to 5 or a 9 to 5 job. There's a lot of flexibility, particularly when it comes time to Ramadan. People will start work later in the day.
Yeah.
But that also transpires with the relationships with America. We have more calls of an evening across various sectors here in the kingdom. So we're in the same time zone as America. I like that, in Australia, I was up at 5 a.m. every morning. I would walk into the city, I would go to the gym, and I'd be at my desk by 6:30 a.m. There is no way you could do that in Saudi. No one would be in the office for a time. There's a gym open. Oh, I say the gym isn't. That was actually one thing that was hard for me. I went to go to the gym, nothing open at 6 a.m. Compound gym, amazing. Yeah, open from 4 or 5 a.m., which is great. But it's learning the different, time shifts, and also learning the importance of the word inshallah, which I didn't get when I first moved here, but I do now. Inshallah, everything's inshallah. It doesn't mean it's not urgent. It just means we will get it done, but we know how to prioritize. There's no arbitrary time frames. It all works well. And coming back to my first point, it really taught me by working here in Saudi, the importance of that life to work balance and not living to work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. What do you like most about life here in Riyadh?
To be honest, it's actually a lot easier than the Western world because the culture is built on respect. It's everywhere. My first week here doing my initial grocery shop, I had a full shopping trolley full of groceries, that initial big shop. There was a gentleman in front of me. He was holding 2 bottles of water. He's like, sister, please. I was, what? I've got a full trolley, no. But he just wanted to help. He wanted me to go through. It's happened in so many different situations. I just love how friendly people are. We went to an event at King Fahd Library back in 2019, so pre-COVID. I went with 3 other expat friends of mine.
Yep.
The German embassy was putting on an orchestra event and a showing. There was a young Saudi girl, and she was like, "Dad, it's Barbie." And I was like, "Oh, this is really cute." And I got to talk to her throughout the night because she just became obsessed with my blonde hair because she hadn't seen that before. By the end of the night, the father and mother came up to my friends and I and said, "Please come to our house for dinner." Now, if that was the Western world, you'd be thinking, okay, I've just been hanging out with your 9-year-old daughter and now you're inviting me to dinner. But that's what happens here. I've had friends do road trips. Everyone will welcome you, serve you Arabic coffee, dates, cook you a meal. I love it. It's just so much easier than so many aspects of my life in Australia.
That's amazing. And you mentioned the compound community being really helpful, especially initially when you didn't know anyone, to be with other people in a similar situation. Have you since found other groups or organizations, maybe local groups, that have been beneficial in terms of networking?
In terms of networking, that's been a little harder as there's not really the professional bodies that you would see in the Western world. So we have, for example, women lawyers associations. We have accounting associations, the peak bodies that would put on those events. So I recently started, but have not yet launched, Women in Saudi because I want to create that professional women's network. There are a number of groups for the mothers that are here in Saudi to give them the support because they're on the compounds 24/7, so making sure they're getting out and about. But what I want to do is bring together the business women for professional development, for networking, for referrals, because when you have that community around you, it makes your life so much easier. It could be simple things like, I need to find a tax specialist to do a comparison between my US assets and my Saudi assets and make a will that will comply with Sharia, but also the assets I own in America. You can Google that, but you don't know if that person is qualified. So I want to create that network so we can have events like that.
That's amazing. And when do you plan to launch this network?
Can I say inshallah? No.
Inshallah when?
I'd love to give an inshallah response. No, we're looking, I've got a lot of travel October, November, so I'm looking to do December as, what people wind down into the year. They'll be back from the summer holidays, school would have already be set in, and people are kind of looking for that, next event to participate in. Those who have professional body requirements, we've got what's called CPD, continuing professional development, where you have to have a number of points per year. And sometimes that ends in December and sometimes it ends in March. So making sure we've got a few events. So the women who need their CPD points, we can kill two birds with one stone.
Well, that's amazing. We very much look forward to your updates and hopefully sharing that information when it's available. So what activities do you engage in here outside of work?
For me personally, a lot of fitness, although I had an operation recently, so I was out for 3 months, but I'm now allowed back in the gym. And for me, it's just a great stress relief. Some people would go cycling or running, but for me, it's the gym. My friends and I love going to a different restaurant every week. There are so many to choose from, and we have our favorites, but we have to force ourselves. No, we need to try a new one every week. So we're just getting around Riyadh more and experiencing that. The souks I used to go quite often, particularly when different people were visiting, because you got to show the Saudi culture, the Saudi life, buy some little souvenirs. I haven't been in some time, but I kind of miss it. And just talking to the locals, it was so much fun. So much fun.
Well, gotta get back out there.
Yes, need to go shopping.
Okay, so that brings us to some rapid fire questions. And you mentioned how there's so many restaurants here, so let's start with that one. Favorite restaurant in KSA?
I'm going to see a tie between Il Burrado and Roca, because one's Italian and one's, Asian cuisine. So the healthy versus the splurge.
Those are your favorite. Okay. Favorite quote?
Ambition is not a quest for power.
One thing you would change about yourself?
Oh, this is so hard to answer. But my friends actually here in Saudi have been trying to make me work on being kinder to myself, not putting as much pressure. I mean, I don't see it because it's me, but so I'm trying to listen to them. But I'm one of those people, I can't take a compliment. I get very awkward and shy, which is quite in contrast to the whole public speaking social media persona. So I'm trying to work on that.
What's a book that's impacted your life?
A book I read when I was about 12 called So Much to Tell You by John Marsden. Really good.
And why did that impact her?
I just remember reading it. It was about a young girl who essentially went mute after an attack, but she found her voice through writing. And the story transpires through the book. I just remember reading it at such a young age, and I was like, wow, there is so much power in words. Made me real, and it just has stuck with me all of these years.
Beautiful. Are you an introvert or extrovert?
People who don't know me would say extrovert because they see the public speaking and the social media. I would say I'm more of an introverted extrovert. I think they call that ambivert because I do like being alone, but I draw so much energy from being around people. I love hearing their stories. I just love sitting there and being like, okay, tell me. Let me just sit and not speak. I actually enjoy that.
Morning or evening?
Look, I'm a 24-hour person, but I would have to say nothing beats watching a sunrise, especially in the east coast of Australia. I would say morning.
Favorite Saudi brand?
Oh, that would be Tariff. The perfumes, soon to release candles. I just love the history behind it. They've got 6 signature perfume scents at the moment, and each one tells a different story from the creator. I just think it's beautiful, and it links a Western person who has moved to Saudi and made Saudi their home and is sharing their love of the country back to it.
What's the name of
Tariff?
Tariff, and where can we find those perfume candles?
All online, Instagram.
Okay. Excellent. What are you most excited about in the coming year?
Look, personally, I'm going to the States. I try and spend October in the States, catching up with everyone, East and West Coast. But I'm speaking at a conference in New York for, it's for family offices.
Oh,
And I speak at a number of events, but I'm really personally excited about this because when you look at the other speakers, you're seeing names such as Rothschild, Guggenheim, Morgan, and then there's Heilbronn. And it was just a personal, like, wow, okay, my work has led us to the, being involved with this community, which I would never have thought possible. So that's one thing I'm definitely excited about. And next year, I'm actually going back to Australia. I haven't been for some time. My close friend's getting married, so I'm slowly getting excited for that.
amazing. And lastly, how can we follow you in your journey?
Now it's more so Instagram. So I'm lifeof.casts
Okay.
after the whole rebrand. That and LinkedIn. I don't use Twitter as much these days. I just have different uses for it. But yeah, definitely Instagram.
Okay, great. Any last words? Anything you'd like to share?
Oh, if you have the opportunity to move to Saudi, do it. Don't second guess yourself, just move.
All right, great. Thanks, Cassandra.